So in this video, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about telescoping pens, particularly one from Fisher and one from Tombow. They're very similar, but they have a couple interesting differences. But really, I wanted to focus on kind of what a telescoping pen is and why they're interesting. There's not that many of them out there, despite it being a pretty cool concept. So a telescoping pen is a type of retractable pen, so no cap, and it extends like a telescope. So basically, it's very small. You pull it out, and the tip will pop out. That's basically the formula. There's other ways to do it, different variants on it, but that's kind of how both of these work and then how it would typically work. So the first one we'll be looking at is the Fisher Space Pen, telescoping pen. It's an all aluminum pen from Fisher, the makers of the original astronaut space pen and all that. And this one's still available, so you can buy it today. It sells for about $35, so it's not cheap. And for $35 from Fisher, you could buy some very cool pens from them. Something like this G4, which is a gold version of the CH4. So kind of grid. This one doesn't sell for that much more than that. So while the telescoping pen is very cool and very functional in that it's very small, it's definitely not cheap. And this one right here, this is from Tombow, and it's called the Object Pixie. So object like the thing, and Pixie like Pixie. I don't really know what the name means, but it's a pretty interesting pen nonetheless. This one I don't think is for sale anymore. When it was on sale, it sold for about $25. They're not super hard to find online, but not everyone can figure out what the name is. So sometimes they're just sold as Tombow telescoping pens, or telescoping pens rather. Sometimes it's just Tombow pen, whatever. You got to search around, but you will find them. So the two are very similar in size. Tombow is a little bit longer, but that's because it has this sort of golf ball thing at the end. They're both aluminum. They're both all metal. They both work by holding the body and pulling out the top area. And then this piece moves. This is spring loaded on both of them. So basically it goes out. It works backwards from the way you think it would work. And then it goes up. And what happens is the refill doesn't move. When you look at these, it looks like it's not really clear what's happening. And we're used to the refill moving on pens, but the refill doesn't move on either one. What happens is this piece moves, and that is triggered by this piece moving. This is spring loaded, so it always wants to go in, not out. And then you push it down, you extend it out. When this isn't here to push it out, when this plunger piece isn't here to push the nose piece out, it pulls back and it exposes the writing tip. Same mechanism on the Fisher. You pull this piece back and it shows off the tip. It shows off the writing area, and this piece pulls back, and then same action. So they're really similar, both all metal, both aluminum from what I could tell. The Fisher is explicitly aluminum. They say that in their documentation. And this one I'm pretty sure is aluminum, but Tombow doesn't really have any documentation on this one. I'm just trying to gather some facts online, so I don't believe it's sold anymore. There are some pages about it, and it's sold in a lot of interesting colors. Like this is clearly an orange, like a, mango or something like that. A light orange is also was sold in a neon green and a darker orange. So the number one difference between these two pens is that the Fisher one, when you remove this, you could see it uses a full-size Fisher refill, which is extremely cool. So this is the standard Fisher PR4 refill. It's a ballpoint refill, and it's one of those refills that writes upside down, underwater, negative 30 degrees F, up to 250 degrees. So it'll basically write all the time, everywhere, and all that. And this one is from 2007. So we know that this pen has been kicking around for at least 10 years. The refill still writes really well, which is typical of these Fisher refills. So standard Fisher refill, the same that you would find on CH4, AG7, any of Fisher's better pens, I would say. And then you can see it just sort of fits in that brass housing right there. Let's see if we can see some of that action. Now you can see the plunger, you can't even really see it moving. Anyway, so it just fits right into that hole right there, and then it locks in. Very nice action to it. And the front piece, you can see it has a big lightweight spring that just moves it back and forth. This aluminum piece moves back and forth, and some very fine threading right there. It's really nicely done. And you just give it a little push and it locks in. With a Tombow, the same sort of thing. This piece doesn't come out. Same with this one, the top piece doesn't come out. You unscrew this. It has, you can see, another big loose spring, very fine threading, aluminum front piece. But this one uses a D1 refill, so that's a portable refill. This one came with a Tombow refill that didn't work really well. It was a ballpoint refill. I replaced it with this. This is a Schmidt EasyFlow 6000 in M, and this is a sort of the Schmidt EasyFlow, the kind of very famous refill that so many people like. It's usually called the Schmidt EasyFlow 9000. That's the Pilot G2 version. This is the D1 version. Same ink, same hybrid ink, same great writing, but D1. So it'll fit in a pen like this, as well as kind of different I'm blanking, like multi-pen style pens. So this one will always only use the D1 refill, and I'm not sure if you can make out, you could probably just see that little hole in the middle there. It will not accommodate other refill types. So put this in. It doesn't really lock in, but it is firmly in place. What's interesting about these two pens, even though Fisher's pen, I believe, is made in the US and the Tombow is made in the US, in the Japan, these front pieces are like really, really similar. Like, look at that. That does not seem to be a coincidence that the two are the same. And let's see if the two are interchangeable. So this is the Fisher front piece on the Tombow body. It looks a little too long. It's a little bit too stuck out. And if we pull it back, it does work, but you can see it doesn't really match up right here. It's a little bit too small, but it does screw right in. Like, I don't know who bought the part from who, but I would bet that at least some of the parts here are shared. Maybe Fisher makes it for Tombow, or Tombow makes it for Fisher. I'm not really sure, but Fisher does say they're made in the US, and this one clearly says Japan here, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe this one component was shared, who knows? But anyway, and there is that piece. And you can see this lines up perfectly where, and this lines up perfectly where before this Fisher piece on the Tombow doesn't work. Actually, let's see if the Tombow and Fisher. Now we're gonna try the Tombow on the Fisher. Yeah, same exact threading, but this piece, the threading is a little bit too long, so we get this gap, and this piece is a little bit too wide, so you could feel it there. If you pull it out, it doesn't work because this piece is too long. So interesting, but again, the threading is the same, clearly the same spring, and clearly interchangeable. So between the two, before we get into the writing samples, I would just say that I very, very much prefer the Fisher. It feels better made. It's more comfortable. I like the looks. I don't like how this golf ball thing looks. But most of all, more than anything, when you pull this out, the action is the same on the two. It doesn't feel any different. One's not smoother than the other. But when you put the Fisher back, go right here, right here. Right here, you get to a stopping point, and then you feel a really nice click right there. Push it in, and listen for this. That's a really, really satisfying click. I spent, like entire conference calls just clicking this, pulling it out. I tell you, it is a really nice feel to it. This is a well-made pen. I really enjoy the sort of the machining work and this click. Fisher gets those tactile feelings better than almost any other company. You will get some, like, this thing's so short that when you're pulling it out, it'll like rub on your hand. So I tend to get ink here from it, but there's none there now. This one, it goes back and there's a little bit of that action, but it's not nearly the same. It's much, much lighter and it just doesn't feel as good. So this pen is good in a lot of ways, and I really like the D1 refill, but I really prefer the action of the Fisher. So now we have a standard Fisher Space Pen refill, which we've reviewed and discussed many times on this channel. So this is the Fisher telescoping Space Pen, and it's a medium PR4. This is a medium black Fisher, writes really nicely. You know, some of these write better than others, depending on how well they age, how old they are, how much you've been using it. But this one's in really good shape. It's a really nice black refill. I've been using it a fair bit this week. I've been keeping these pens really close to me all week. So that's the Fisher PR4 inside that Fisher telescoping Space Pen. And here is that Easy Flow. So this is a Schmidt Easy Flow 6000. This is a hybrid refill. This refill will not last very long, where that Fisher refill will basically last forever, but you get that really nice dark blue color that you get from a hybrid ink, and has a really nice feel when you write. It has a lot of tactility to it. You can kind of hear it, which is one of the things with the Easy Flow refills. Listen up. It kind of feels a little loose. There is a tiny, tiny little bit of play here that the Fisher doesn't have. You can see it there. And that's because the Schmidt Easy Flow refill, it's a D1, but some D1s are a little bit skinnier than others. So it's like, you know, 0.2 of a millimeter off from a standard, from like Tombow's style of D1. It's whatever, like we've gotten this before in the refill guide, but some D1s are a little bit skinnier than others, and the Easy Flow is on the skinny side compared to what Tombow uses. So you get a little bit of play. But some of that audio and tactile feel is actually from the refill itself. That's just something Schmidt does with the Easy Flow. So, and there, anyway, that's the Schmidt. It's a true Easy Flow. It writes like an Easy Flow. It's that really nice dark blue. It's a lot of fun to use, but it doesn't last very long. Whereas the Schmidt PR4, sorry, the Fisher PR4 basically lasts forever. Anyway, so there you have it. That is the Fisher Space Pen, telescoping pen, and the Tombow Object Pixie. Two very cool telescoping pens. I definitely recommend the Fisher over the Tombow, but if you love those D1 refills, then Tombow is the way to go. So there you go. Thanks for watching.